So, Paul, you have prepared a reading for us. Is that right?
Yeah. So, well, I was going to read a chapter out of my new novel coming out, but I think I'll leave that, and I'll just read you a couple of pages from Red Winter Journey, and it's actually one of the smallest chapters in the novel, but it's sort of like a side shoot story off of the main story, and it's a bit of a love story. So I'll read that. Okay, so William had discovered that she was from Stanbury, a small village 1 mile west of Haworth. Lucy told William where she lived on the freehold farm owned by her father. She requested him to call on her so that they could meet and ask for permission to see each other. Back at home, Lucy told her father of the courtship. "Father, please." Lucy's father was shocked and dismayed by the news. "What do you know of this man and his family? They are good, they're honest." "Lucy, you do not need to shout." Lucy's father walked into the sitting room and sat down on the high-backed wooden chair near the fire. Lucy followed him in and quietened her tone respectfully and stood in front of him. "Family, father." The father looked into the fire. He was upset and afraid that he would lose her sooner than he wanted to, for he knew that marrying the right man was important to her future and their families. He thought about the importance of this union. Lucy would be labelled according to the status of her husband. Yes, she did have a dubious reputation locally from working at the King's Arms, but that was all a ruse that her future husband would never need to know about. No, he wanted her to have a better life than what he had, so it was paramount that she married a man of higher station, a man with lands, a man with means. Her father looked at her curiously. "Yes, and does he own lands?" Lucy paused. "I'm not sure, father. I know he's a freeman." This comment angered him. "A freeman? That's all you know? And how do you know this man? Please don't say the King's Arms. What's his name?" Lucy paused again and lowered her voice, expecting the worst. "His name's William Rushworth." "William Rushworth? Absolutely not, Lucy. I've known the family for years," declared her father. Suddenly there was a knock at the door. Lucy ran to the window. "It's him, father. Please be civil." "What already? This is absurd, Lucy." "For me. Father, for me." William had arrived early, dressed in his Sunday best. He'd washed the grit from his nails and wet down his hair. He had a small posy of autumn flowers in his hand. He nervously knocked on the door, and he could hear stomping on the wooden floor and some heated exchange. He knocked on the door again and nervously waited for someone to open it. He looked at the posy and then down at the gravel, moving it with the side of his thin leather boot. The door opened. William looked down at a shiny pair of black leather shoes with a grand silver buckle. He nervously raised his head a little and took note of the beige hose and the blue garter tied at the knee. He raised his head even further to notice the tan breeches, then further examined the white fabric of the shirt. Finally, he looked up to see Lucy's father in the face. The steward stood there, carefully caressing his thin grey moustache on his upper lip, then ran his hand down to a neatly trimmed beard. He had the look of sheer evil in his eyes. "Steward, your grace." William was completely taken by surprise and took a step backwards on the gravel. The steward paused and looked William up and down, then grumbled, "What do you want, boy?" William held on to the posy in front of him. I've brought these for Lucy, sir." The steward looked at the flowers. They had wilted somewhat since he had picked them. The steward just stood there holding the edge of the door as if he was about to slam it shut. William stood for what seemed like an eternity, watching the steward look him up and down with a look of disdain, waiting for the acknowledgement, but it didn't come. Lucy appeared at the door. "William!" She stepped forward and grabbed William's hand and pulled him inside the house, much to the steward's annoyance. She led him into the farmhouse. It had 2 rooms, a grand set of stairs, and another 2 rooms upstairs. Lucy led him into the first door, the sitting room. It had a large window that faced the front of the house. It was a large room, but it was comfortable, with a solid oak chair table, clean stone pavers on the floor. There was a simple high-backed wooden form decorated with a set of red cushions in the middle of the room. There were 2 high-backed wooden chairs placed near the fireplace. A small oak table sat underneath the window with an iron candle holder. The candle, half melted drips of wax, had dried as it flowed down the side. Lucy nervously waited for her father to enter the room. The steward entered. "Lucy, wait for us in the kitchen, please." "Father, please don't." Lucy looked at him with a feeling of trepidation. The steward looked at Lucy sternly and repeated, "Lucy, wait for us in the kitchen." She didn't want to make it any worse, so she let go of William's hand and walked toward the door. Looking back, William stood there holding the posy of flowers that had wilted even further. She walked out of the room, but not without giving her father a despicable look. Lucy stopped, sadness in her eyes. She took one more look at William before closing the door slowly to prolong their parting. "Sit down, Rushworth." The steward gestured for William to sit at the high-backed form in the middle of the room. "I'm okay, Your Grace. I would rather stand," said William bravely, having some idea about the coming conversation. The steward stood facing him with a serious, expressionless look on his face. "What are you doing here, William?" William stood there bravely, not forcing himself, not to be intimidated by the man who all the village feared. "I'd like to court your daughter, sir." The steward looked down at William's muddy shoes. "William, you know that's not going to happen. I don't know what you've said to attract her, but you know she's not for you." William took a breath to steady himself. "Sir, I'd like to court your daughter, Lucy." The steward smiled with repugnance. "William, you're a good lad. I like you. I like your family. But you know this isn't right. William, what do you have to offer her? You have no land. Your family pays dues to the Lord, which you can't afford. You have no stock, little means, and no future." William stood there looking downtrodden and dejected. "Sir, I'd like to court your daughter. Lucy, I'll work hard." The steward cut him off. "William, you know you don't want this. I'll give you 10 shillings to turn and walk the other way. Look what you could do with your family with that." "Sir, I don't want your coin. I want to court Lucy." The steward started to get angry. "God damn it, boy. Will you not see sense?" The steward walked off toward the door, opened it, and walked down toward the kitchen. As he did, Lucy came running past him to the sitting room. She slowed as she got to the door, looked in to see William standing there holding the flowers that dangled toward the ground, limp and lifeless. The petals had fallen like his heart.